Yes, shalom, shalom. Good day unto all of our listeners and our viewers, wheresoever you are. We thank Elohim for yet another opportunity that He has granted unto us to be alive in this day and time. It is blessing which is coming from Abba, our Maker, as we see that the days are far spent. The cycles of the sun and the moon are passing, and with it also the hourglass of Elohim. Many of his people, indeed, they pray and they call unto him for his return. But oftentimes, as he has spoken before, he is speaking again, and he oftentimes is saying that the cup of the Babylonians, the time and space and the place where we are living, it is not yet full. Just as we think that we are reaching madness, the madness that we are yet to experience will be 10 times more than the one we are experiencing now. So it behooves us, the ones that are living in Babylon and that still can enjoy a relative small amount of peace, to make the utmost use of the peace he has given. It's like in the days of the kid prophet told the Pharaoh that, behold, you are in for 14 years, of which 7 at a time of prosperity. And yet again, 7 after that will be times of famine. And so in the wisdom of Joseph, he told the king, make sure that you save a lot of the food, because after the 7 years of prosperity, you will go through difficult times and hardships. It's the same as with us. Information is running rampant. I remember when I spoke to the boys, I think last week, we basically concluded and said that in this time of information, ignorance is a choice. Because everything you need to know, you want to know, the books are open. The www is doing things. You can access so many sources. So for you to remain ignorant in our day and time with regarding to the topics of who are the Hebrews, the color of the Hebrews, who are the Egyptians, if these are still things that you are ignorant about, then I don't even know why you are still living, to be honest, because it's a sin and a shame, to the point where there was this article that I read yesterday. There is this group of lawyers or something. They want to sue Netflix. They want to sue Netflix for misrepresenting the Egyptian folks. Some crazy mulatto Arab wants to sue Netflix because they are misrepresenting the Egyptian identity. And I read it and I was like, the audacity of people nowadays is too much. Because without a fact, without a shadow of a doubt even, it is a fact that the Egyptian folks of times past were black. It's, if you would take any scholar from before the 1800s, you will see that all of them will tell you the Egyptian folks were black. Your own biblical dictionary will tell you that Egypt is the son of Ham, one of the 4 sons of Ham, right? Egypt in its ancient time, its name was called Kemet. And we know Kem simply means black. So I will be following this case, because if this guy wins, then it means that many of us will have difficulties in even speaking the truth, because now they will turn the truth around and they will call it hate speech. So for all of us that study and that do research and stuff, every source you find with regards to the color of the Hebrews, the color of the Egyptians, antiquity, you must make sure you immediately, expeditiously save the source. Save the source, save the book, put it in a hard drive, let it catch dust somewhere. Because the way things are going, slowly but surely, they will start removing all the ancient historians. And they will only leave behind these pseudo historians that started doing history in the year 2000s. Because one of the biggest hoax when it comes to uncovering Black dignity is the lie around the term Egyptology. Because have you ever sat down to think, like, why do we have a field of research called Egyptology? Why don't we have Hebrewology and Britishology and Europology and Frenchology and Congoology and Ghanalology? Why do we have Egyptology? Why don't we have Babyloniagy? The reason why Egyptology exists is because the white racist people, I will not call all of them, the white racist people, the people in the higher echelons, because they understand that the greatness of Egypt was too big to hide. Now they took a particular interest in that field of domain, and they made sure that the white archaeologists are now the gatekeepers when it comes to the knowledge surrounding Egypt. That is why you will see it is never our own people that will go to the pyramids and uncover the hieroglyphs. It is always them that will go, uncover the hieroglyphs, and then tell us what it means. So the concept of Egyptology is nothing else but the white supremacist way of gatekeeping the truth when it comes to the real identity of the Egyptians. That is why that fraud university study or scientific corner exists. Egyptology is a lie. It's a lie. But because of time, maybe we will quickly jump. For today's topic is, I think okay, so could you please show the first slide? So I hope all you people are doing well. You'll touch something that is quite important. That babble about Egypt was just something that was just bubbling. So we will look at the theme, fruit of the flesh. We are continuing with this theme, fruit of the flesh. And the topic of today will be surrounding jealousy. I wrote down jealousy and envy. My apologies. The topic is jealousy and pride, because envy and jealousy are synonyms, right? So if you look at the big gray ball, you'll see envy and pride. So the topic is jealousy and pride. So not jealousy and envy, yeah? So our introduction, please.
This lesson, we will look at the capital sins of pride and jealousy. We will showcase how these bad behaviors have a general impact on us, and how they play out differently in men and women. By identifying the same behavior in biblical character, we will highlight their pitfalls and draw practical conclusions that we can apply to our lives and avoid many mistakes moving forward.
Exactly. And the reason why I wrote down capital sins of pride and jealousy, this has nothing to do with the Catholic classification of what they call the 7 deadly sins. There is no biblical doctrine to support that statement, because they say the 7 deadly sins and they name pride and jealousy and all these things. But nowhere in their 7 deadly sins classification have they written down the sin of blasphemy. So that should tell you that everything you see as its fountain coming from Rome, Europe, it's a lie, right? So the reason why I wrote down, I will look at the capital sins of pride and jealousy is because you will see that at the base of many other sins, you will see that the sin of pride, the sin of jealousy, and the sin of lust are the strongest. These three are the major sins that easily besets many people. And if you are able to overcome the basis of these sins, pride, jealousy, lust, you are as near as to perfection as you can reach. Right? And we'll try to break down how pride plays out in the lives of many souls and how jealousy plays out in the lives of many souls, right? And after that, you will realize how Elohim looks at it. And you will understand that the one you call a witch that is flying around is not the witch you should fear, but the one that is a true witch is the one that sits at home and that imagines wicked thoughts concerning someone else. That is the witch you should avoid, right? So we will look at it and you will understand how grave and serious this is, right? So our table of content.
We will look at the definition of jealousy and pride. So we'll look at what is meant by jealousy and pride. We'll look at the case of the first fallen angel. We'll look at King Nebuchadnezzar and pride, which is the sin of men. We'll look
Not the sin of men. So we will look at King Nebuchadnezzar, or as they call it, Nebuchadnezzar. And then we'll look at pride, which is the sin of man, not men as plural, the sin of man, as in the male species.
We'll look at the case of Rachel and Lea and Solomon and the two women. We'll look at jealousy, which is the sin of women, and then the conclusion.
And then we will conclude, right? So please pay attention as we unravel this many-layered onion. Starting with the very definitions of jealousy, right? So from the Cambridge
Dictionary, jealousy is defined as a feeling of unhappiness and anger because someone has something or someone that you want.
Can you imagine this, right? So these people have broken it down and they said jealousy is a feeling of unhappiness and anger because someone has something or someone that you want. Hey, this is tough, right? So a feeling of unease, unhappiness, anger, because someone has something, or, and I like how they inject it, or someone. This is not easy, eh? Because someone has something or someone that you want, right? So some examples: he broke his brother's new bike
in a fit of jealousy.
So because of jealousy, people will end up breaking people's stuff.
She was consumed or eaten up with jealousy when she heard that he had been given a promotion.
Some people, when they hear that good news has reached your house, all of a sudden they can lose their appetite. So like they're eating and then they hear, hey, Arike has, or hey, Apoka has his diploma. All of a sudden someone loses his appetite. What? For oh ja, zie je, daarom is hij zo arrogant, hè? So they draw stories because they hear good news has reached your house. Another example, the team
has performed very badly this season due to petty jealousies among the players.
So that is the Cambridge variant. And then we go to the Strong's Concordance, and it says,
jealousy is defined, or in the King James, it is used as jealousy
25 times,
or zeal and envy or for my sake.
So obviously, every word in the world, right? Just like everything in the world, it has a positive side of things and a negative side of things. The things that are good don't need to be mentioned. Because we are speaking about the fruit of the flesh, obviously we will focus on the negative side of this feeling. Because Elohim also is called a jealous Elohim, right? So sometimes if you study your children, if you have children, or you study your siblings, you can just look and you can already see some essence of this very dangerous habit or characteristic. You see someone achieve something and their behavior changes. Some people, you'll see it when they put on a certain apparel and their behavior changes. Some people, you'll see it, they get money, they get a job, they get married, or whatsoever thing they get that they wanted, and you see that their behavior changes. So usually you won't really see it when people are low or broke. You can see some essence of it, but it won't really manifest. But the moment they get elevated in life, the moment you give them, sometimes it's even, you can test it very quickly. Like, just give someone a position. Let's say young people are in one team, right? Let's see some people are in one team, and then you give them a position, right? And then all of a sudden, in the position you give them, you see the one that now has the leadership position, even though it's nothing. The one that has the leadership position all of a sudden begins to make certain statements from, if you want to tell me something, send me private message. And small things, and then you're like, this person, if this guy or girl gets money, or if this guy or girl gets a very big position in life, many people will suffer because the seed of pride is already very evident, right? So it is something you are born with, and it is something that needs to be managed. And then from the Strong's version, what does it say there?
So in the King James Version, the word pride is used in different manners.
Mm-hmm.
The first one is as pride,
Mm-hmm.
or as excellency,
Mm-hmm.
as majesty,
Mm-hmm.
as pump,
Mm-hmm.
as swelling.
Pump as in pompous, opgeblazen.
Pompous,
Mm-hmm.
as swelling,
Mm-hmm.
as arrogancy,
Mm-hmm.
as excellent,
Mm-hmm.
or as proud.
Yeah. So the very variations read exaltation.
So in the outline of biblical usage, it is used as exaltation,
Mm-hmm.
majesty or pride,
Mm-hmm.
majesty, exaltation, and excellence,
Mm-hmm.
excellence of nations, of Elohim of the Jordan,
Mm-hmm.
or B, pride and arrogance in a bad sense.
Exactly. And we will focus, unfortunately, predominantly on side B, pride, arrogance in a bad sense. And then I wrote down, please note
that the King James sometimes uses the word strive to define selfish ambition.
Exactly. So, apart from the fact that it says the belief that you are better or more important than other people, you can also self-define pride as selfish ambition. Selfish ambition, meaning your greed to improve in life at the extent of others, right? So pride. You don't care if you hurt other people in your ascension. You don't care if you have to betray, kill, whatever, as long as you keep on reaching your goals, as long as you keep on climbing this hypothetical ladder that you've placed for yourself. You want to be bigger, stronger, richer, better than anyone else. That's pride, right? So those being the definitions, we'll look at the origin of it all. The case of the first fallen, right? So the secrets of Enoch, 29:2.
And from the rock I cut off a great fire. And from the fire I created the orders of the incorporeal 10 troops of angels, and their weapons are fiery, and their raiment a burning flame. And I commanded that each one should stand in his order.
Now behold how Elohim is telling you what he did on the first day. How he basically began to form and create the very 10 orders or rankings of the heavenly hosts or the angels. And the Bible specifically tells us that he created them to stand in their order. So he gave them a hierarchy. And he said, this is your order, and this is where ye shall stand, ye and your followers, right? And then verse 3 it says, and one
from out of the order of angels, having turned away with the order that was under him, conceived an impossible thought to place his throne higher than the clouds above the earth, that he might become equal in rank to my power. And I threw him out from the heights with his angels, and he was flying in the air continuously above the bottomless. So
this is telling you, this is the mouth, as you can say it. This is the commentary of Elohim as he was speaking mouth to mouth with Enoch, the scribe. And he began to tell him things. He said, and these are things that at that time even the angels did not know. And he told them of their origin, and he told them how the first fallen fell. How when he made him being glorious in apparel, he conceived an impossible thought. Impossible as in, it was impossible as in, that thought of him was impossible to accomplish, because there is no way that you can be equal to Elohim. Right? So Elohim looked at him, he perceived his thought, and he saw his rebellious ways, and then he cast him out. And he cast him out above the firmament, and that was the place where he then stayed, stripped of his rank and his glory, right? And then Ezekiel 28:14 also begins to tell an account. So could you read for us, please?
Thou art the anointed cherub that covers.
So it is telling you that Ezekiel was able to uncover that he was of the rank of the cherub, or the covering ones.
And I have set thee so, and thou was upon the set apart mountain of Elohim. Thou was walked up and down in the midst of the stones of fire.
So these stones of fire is the same allusion that Enoch spoke of, because as Enoch says that the angels will cut from the rocks of fire, right? So Ezekiel is telling you, you stood amidst the stones of fire. In other words, you stood amidst other angels.
Thou was perfect in thy ways from the day that thou was created, till iniquity was found in thee.
Until iniquity. So the mystery behind this is the sin of pride. What many people don't understand, like the sin of jealousy, it is not just sin, it is an iniquity, right? Why is it an iniquity? If you get into the habit of being proud, it is a continuous sin, meaning everything you do will be done from the mindset of I'm big. I'm big. So you want to buy clothes, you should suffice with a normal shirt. But because you are big, you will sin even in buying your clothes, because let's say you only have 250 euros. And because you, as the Sanang people like to say, are big too much, right? So you won't be satisfied with a 5 euro shirt. You're like, I'm bigger than that. So you end up buying a shirt 100 euros or 200 euros, and just so that you have a status quo to maintain. You see? So when it comes to the sin of pride, which was the sin that the first fallen one demonstrated, right? The Bible is telling you, you was made perfect until iniquity was found in you. Pride is an iniquity. Pride is an iniquity. Because sometimes when you sin, let's say you lie. Lying is not an iniquity, because sometimes you make a mistake and you lie, it's just a sin, and then you can correct it, and then you move on. But once the seed of pride is planted in you and it grows, you are continuously proud. It's not a one moment. You can't switch it on and off. You are proud. Right? So he's saying, until iniquity was found in you. Continue.
Thine heart was lifted up because of thy beauty. Thou hast corrupted thy wisdom by reason of thy brightness. I will cast thee to the ground. I will lay thee before kings, that they may behold thee.
So it is telling you how the first one basically fell. And then when you read the account of I think the book of Jubilees, and you read the account of even Isaiah 14, it is telling you how you wanted to ascend and be likened unto the Most High. So this is the sin of the first fallen, as he demonstrated this very sick disease of pride. So we are continuing. The Greek Apocalypse, or the book of Baruch 3.
So still dealing with the case of the first fallen angel. The Baruch 3:4 from verse 8. All are Alphias, Abirus, and the Gericus. And because of these, the sea does not sink. And I said, I pray thee, show me which is the tree which led Adam astray. And the angel said to me, it is the vine which the angel Samael planted. Whereat the master Elohim was angry, and he cursed him and his plant. While also on this account, he did not permit Adam to touch it. And therefore, the devil, being envious, deceived him through his vine.
So apart from the other capital sin that the devil demonstrated, it is also telling you that apart from being proud, he also demonstrated the sin of envy. Envy is just another word for jealousy, right? So that is the book of 3rd Baruch. Now let's go to the wisdom of Solomon chapter 2.
For Elohim created man to be immortal.
Because Elohim created man to be immortal.
And made him to be an image of his own eternity.
And made him, listen, the angels were created first. Man was created last. But Elohim said, let the first be the last and the last be the first. So even though man was created as the very last creation of Elohim, Elohim made man higher than the angels. He made men more glorious, more powerful, and he gave them a more prestigious place in his creation, right? So verse 24, nevertheless,
through envy of the devil came death into the world, and they that do hold of his side do find it.
Nevertheless, the first angel, being so envious of what Elohim has done with regarding to Adam, he protested. Because when you read that story of Enoch, where it says he conceived an impossible thought, it's not like when he conceived that thought, Elohim immediately cast him out there. He conceived that thought and time went on. He began to poison the minds of the angels that were under him, and time went on. He began to protest against Elohim when Elohim was willing to create men, and time went on. And apart from that, when Elohim finished creating Adam, he commanded all of the angels to come and pay homage to Adam, right? And so when the troops of angels began to come, the first one that was supposed to come and bow down was this first fallen one called Samael. And he refused and was like, I am older than him. I am bigger than him. He is for flesh. I am of fire. He is made of lesser elements than me. It is blasphemy for me to bow down to this entity. And so the other angels, Michael being the leader, was like, we must do this because Elohim has commanded it. Right? But Samael was like, nah, I'm bigger than this. It was at this point that he truly showed open rebellion. And so he and his troops were cast down. So you are seeing that in the case of the first fallen, some books still have this story. I think even the Quran still has this version of the story. And many of the Christian books, unfortunately, have removed it. So I'm not saying this from I had a dream. As the minister Justice likes to say, we are not of that kind. We will not come here and lie to you, find this is an eyewitness account, right? Nee, hoeft niet. This is from books, right? So this is basically what happened. And this fallen one, he demonstrated the first case of sin, the first case of being proud and being envious, to the point where this sickness began to be manifested in his offspring, in his descendants, and now it has polluted the whole world. So that's the case of the first fallen. How, by reason of this mistake, he was cast out of his royal position, and he was doomed forever. Right? So are there any questions before we continue? So what is the question?
So the question is, where did the evil of the angel come from, and how was it possible for iniquity to be found in him?
That is a very good question. I would advise you to I think when we dealt with the topic of was it salvation? That was the first time that I think I said that sometimes when we think of the concept of free will, we think that it only has to do with men. It is not true. The origin of free will was first found in the heavens, because when the angels were speaking to Elohim when it comes to the creation of men, that was the time when Elohim said, all right, you are free to choose whether you will side with me or you will side against me. You are free to choose. So the concept of free will is not something that is only given to us. Angels also have it. That is why angels were able to make a decision on Mount, what's it called, Hermon, and say like, the women are looking kind of nice, in it. The women they're spicy, in it. That's when they decide. That's when they were speaking. They were speaking, right? And they decided, because at that time they were not fallen ones. They were known as the Watchers, meaning they were of the orders of good angels. But they decided for, hey, let's do this thing. And then they entered into agreement and they decided to do it. So angels also have it. That is why you will even sometimes read, I think in the book of Daniel, where it says, and this is the decree of the Watchers. Not so much the decree of Elohim. Within the right and the domain of angels, there are decisions that they can make. They have that prerogative. So the free will aspect comes not only from mankind. So that is where it comes from. That is where it comes from. I don't know if that answers your question.
I believe it does.
So because of time, I can't believe it's 12:40 already. This is madness, right? So we will have to fly this. Okay, so let's go to the next one. The pride of King Nebuchadnezzar. So read Book of Daniel.
Chapter 4.
What a majestically looking king.
Nebuchadnezzar was at rest in mine house
And flourished.
and flourished in my palace. I saw a dream which made me afraid.
Terrible.
And the thoughts upon my bed and the visions of my head troubled me. The tree that thou sawest.
So when he saw this, he was afraid. And being wise, he went and he asked for the counselors in his kingdom, right? And then he began to ask them, what does this mean? And lo and behold, there came a man by the name of Daniel, whose name was changed into Belteshazzar. And he began to give him the interpretation. And he said, the tree
that thou sawest, which grew and was strong, whose height reached unto the heaven, and the side thereof to all the earth, whose leaves were fair, and the fruit thereof much, and it was meat for all. Under which the beasts of the field dwelt, upon whose branches the fowls of the heaven had their habitation. It is thou, O king, that art grown and become strong. For thy greatness is grown and reached unto heaven, and thy dominion to the end of the earth. And whereas the king saw a watcher and an holy one coming down from heaven, and saying, hew down the tree and destroy it, yet leave the stump of the root thereof in the earth, even with a band of iron and brass, in the tender grass of the field, and let it be wet with the dew of heaven, and let his portion be with the beasts of the field till 7 times pass over him. This is the interpretation, O king, and this is the decree of the Most High, which is come upon my master the king, that they shall drive thee from men, and thy dwelling shall be with the beasts of the field. Then they shall make thee to eat grass as oxen, and they shall wet thee with the dew of heaven, and 7 times shall pass over thee, till thou know that the Most High ruleth in the kingdom of men, and gives it to whomsoever he wills. And whereas they commanded to leave the stump of the tree roots, thy kingdom shall be sure unto thee, after that thou shalt have known that the heavens do rule. Wherefore, O king, let my counsel be acceptable unto thee.
So now Daniel is trying to give him a medicine, because basically pride kicks in. That's why I said it is difficult to identify pride when you are in a lowly estate, when you have nothing. But the moment you begin to reach certain points in life, that is where you see that seed of pride begins to find its preeminence and really grow. So because of all the riches and the glory that Nebuchadnezzar had attained, he became prideful. He began to boast and said, I have done this by my power. No one is likened unto me in power, in glory, in beauty. And because of that, Elohim showed him a dream where he was a great tree. And unfortunately, Elohim decided to cut down the tree. But now Daniel is giving him a medicine and is saying, King,
let my counsel be acceptable
please
unto thee,
let my counsel be acceptable unto thee,
and break off thy sins by righteousness,
and begin to stop this sin, this iniquity, this sin of pride by doing righteous deeds,
and thine iniquities by shewing mercy to the poor.
And stop your iniquities by showing mercy to the poor. Why? Because pride is a sin that takes of others. So he's telling you, when it comes to certain sins, you don't just say, I'm sorry. You must counteract it with works. You must counteract it with works. You must really counteract it with works. Otherwise, it won't atone. So he's telling him, in order for you to stop this iniquity, begin to think of the orphans.
If it may be a lengthening of thy tranquility.
Unfortunately, verse 28 says, all this, however,
came upon the king Nebuchadnezzar.
So if you continue reading the story of Nebuchadnezzar, you will see that unfortunately, he did not take heed to the warning of Daniel, and he was turned into a beast. He was turned into a beast. Why? Because in him was found the sin of pride. The sin of pride will bring you to a low estate, because the Bible says pride comes before a fall. Elohim will render you a beast, and everything you have, if you are not careful, will be taken away from you. So as we are concluding with pride, I wrote down pride, the sin of man. Why did I say that? Proverbs 29:23.
A man's pride shall bring him low, but
Do you see how it specifies? And it says, a man's pride shall bring him low. But
honor shall uphold the humble in spirit.
But the one that is humble in spirit shall be upheld. Proverbs 6:16.
These 6 things that Yah hate, yea, 7 are an abomination unto him.
Now look at the things that Elohim really, really, really despises. So the first one,
a proud look.
You have to understand that the order of things is not by coincidence. He's telling you, behold, these 6 things Elohim hates, yet the 7th is an abomination. And he's telling you the first one is a proud look. Pride is the beginning of any sin you can think of. Of any sin you can think of. Pride is at the cause and the root of it. So it is telling you that a proud look,
a lying tongue, and hands that shed innocent blood, and heart that deviseth wicked imaginations, and feet that are swift in running to mischief, a false witness that speaks lies, and he that sows discord among brethren.
So a proud look, the first one, these are the things that Elohim really despises. We will continue, then we will see why. So 1 John 2:16, it says,
for all that is in the world, the lust of the flesh, and the lust of the eyes, and the pride of life, is not of the Father, but is of the world.
So for all that is in the world, the very lust of the flesh, the very lust of the eyes, and the very pride of life is not of the Father, but it is of the world. So any sin you will see yourself in, or you can classify, will always be one of the 3: a lust of the eye, pride of life, lust of the flesh, and all these things, they go hand in hand. So an example, Luke 12:17.
And he thought within himself, saying,
An example coming from a man who has achieved much in life, right? And it says, and he thought within himself,
saying, what shall I do? Because I have no room where to bestow my fruits. And he said, this will I do. I will pull down my barns and build greater. And there will I bestow all my fruits and my goods. And I will say to my soul, soul, thou hast much goods laid up for many years. Take thine ease, eat, drink, and be merry. But Elohim said unto him, thou fool, this night thy soul shall be required of thee. Then who shall these things be which thou hast provided? So is he that lays up treasure for himself and is not rich towards Elohim.
You see the mystery there? So no one is saying you are not allowed to plan forward. It is fine. But the moment you start planning and Elohim is nowhere to be mentioned, he is done with you. Because that is the very beginning of a downfall. You are planning, I want to get married. Elohim is nowhere in your conversation. You are planning, I want children. Elohim is nowhere in your conversation, meaning Elohim has no part in your marriage. Elohim has no part in your children. You are planning, I want a job. Elohim has no part in your job. I want a house. You have no intention of maybe making sure that within my house, I will also accommodate Elohim. So in every aspect of your planning forward, Elohim is not involved. And when you are doing that, Elohim is observing, and he will call you a fool. He will call you a selfish person. You are a prideful person because you don't even realize that nothing that you have is truly yours. That's when things go wrong. You don't sleep by yourself, nor do you awaken by yourself. When you awake, there is a force that enters you, but that force is not yours. You don't have eyesight by yourself, nor do you have the sense of smell by yourself. When you go to your job to amass wealth, who gives you that strength? All these things come from the higher man, but you in your planning, the higher man is nowhere to be found. Nowhere to be found. You married and all you want to do with that wife is you want to somersault and do all manner of things. Nothing with Elohim. You and your wife, there is nothing with Elohim. You married your wife so that you guys can go to clubs and stuff, drink around and bounce around. You have children, there is no intention coming from you to teach them with regards to Elohim. Not knowing that when Elohim gives you children, he lends them to you. He entrusts them to you. Just like he said with regards to Abraham, shall I keep things from Abraham? Knowing that whatsoever I teach him, he will also teach it to his children. You have a house, Elohim has no portion in it. Your car, Elohim has no portion. Everything that is yours, Elohim has no portion in it. And when you do these type of things, Elohim considers you a fool. And this is usually things that happen with men. So I've written down in yellow because I understood that red is sometimes difficult to read from the people that are casting it at their houses. So it is important to note
that amongst all the sins that cleave to mankind, the sin of pride is strongly present in the male species. Man is naturally ambitious and always strives for more. This ambition and striving for increase needs to be monitored. Otherwise, it will turn into pride. Because of this pride of life, many preachers, unfortunately, have made the gospel their private business model, and the church members have become their source of income.
You can see it often. Many preachers, they start very well. The messages are hardcore. They are strict. And oftentimes you also see they are skinny when they're starting, right? Now all of a sudden you see them, they become colossal. And I don't mind you becoming colossal as long as your doctrine still is intact. But if I see and your doctrine has weakened and you have become colossal, then I already know. Right? So Timothy, I think, is it Timothy? No, Titus 1:11. It says, whose mouth
must be stopped,
who subvert
whole houses, teaching things which they ought not,
for filthy
lucre's sake.
So you see, that is what pride will do with you. That is what pride will do with you. Because of your greed to reach higher heights, you will lie, you will cheat, you will steal. You will steal. You will deceive. You will compromise. All because you want more and more and more and more and more and more. And men are at the cause of this. This is a sin that really touches men. Too proud. Too proud. Who does he think he is? I'm bigger than this. He's my senior. Where were you when we were we? No. I'm educated. He's not. Why should I give my money? I have to go to work. Elohim, ik kan niet, ik moet werken. So, in your ambition, in your zeal to grow, which is fine, you should never put Elohim number 2. And you will see many people, they will abandon the calling because of pride. They will compromise their mission in life because of money. Preachers have now turned into the ways of Balaam, all because they were like, no, man, I see all the other preachers prospering. Why should I be the only one that would stick to this hardcore message? Let me also compromise, because I don't imagine that all of them are wrong. So because of this, unfortunately, many have fallen. Now you will see them. A preacher standing in the church, and he has a very large sweater, and and he's not even ashamed. And then the sweater is so big and then it's written like Balenciaga. Big, like Balenciaga. It's big, and then he's standing there, and then he's preaching. He's just preaching. Right? So Balenciaga, and then he's preaching. And then if care is not taken, he will take oil. He will and so like there is no reserve, nothing. And after that, the offering will come, and then he will take the money. And then when he takes the money, the preacher really goes home and he starts counting the money. And as he starts counting the money, if care is not taken, he goes to his friends group in his WhatsApp, and then he sends the picture from the gospel is paying. Yeah, man, the gospel is paying. And then you're not wondering like, Emma, wow. So you had a conference and you maybe gathered 500 euros and you are so happy that day. Not even mourning for the souls that you saw there. Not even mourning fun. Hey, the message was so tough. How will they take it? How many souls will really take this? That's not your concern. Your concern is I went there and I came back with 5. You see, so the gospel is a business model. They know fun. They have a status quo fun. I should have around 2 conferences every 2 months. If I don't have 2 conferences every 2 months, my checkbook will be minus. So don't you sometimes sit down and wonder, fun, why do these people have so many conferences? And all the conferences are the same. The messages are the same. They promise you liberty. Nevertheless, they themselves are captives. So every time, every conference, sometimes it's a different title, but the message is the same. And the same people keep on going. You keep on giving tithes and offerings, and you don't sit down and wonder, fun, hey, these people have been going like In 1 year time, there are people that went to 20 conferences. Just imagine you went to 20 conferences in 1 year. And every time you go there, you gave money. And your life hasn't changed. But every time the conferences are there, the preacher is already calculating in his head. 500 people today. If at least the half gives 10 euros, I should make it. So what you don't realize is they are calculating. They're calculating, right? So that is why they would even prefer women to come to conferences. These are things you don't know, but this is their calculation, because they know women are the biggest spenders. They know it. We men, we are very tough. We're like, ik. Pay what? No, maar ik doe het niet. Women are like, nee, het was een goed woord. Mag ik me geven? That's what they do. So that's why you will see they will cater to women in their churches. They will have many conferences, and the words will always be sweet. And they will put on Balenciagas, and they will be very smooth. All of that is catering to, unfortunately, our sisters. Right? So all of this also is part of the sin of pride. There are many angles to take it, but because I want to focus on some of the ministers, but now because of time, it is one more hour. So let's spend 1 hour on our sisters now. Right? So, Bantu sisters. So the case of Rachel and Lea. So the Bible verse is already there. Genesis 29, 32, 34. But because it's like 2 to 3 chapters, we can't put 2 to 3 chapters down. We have just taken out the essence of the story. We all know the story of Rachel and Leah, the 2 daughters of Laban, if I'm correct. Leah being the older, Rachel being the younger. So we wrote down, right? In the example of Leah and Rachel,
both sets of sisters compared themselves to each other and ended up filled with envy.
Both of them were at a stage in their life that they were very miserable. And their miserableness was in the fact that they kept on comparing themselves with themselves. Rachel was like, who durf Leah? Who durf Leah? And you know that statement, who durft? Who durf Leah? How dare she marry my husband? And Leah was like, who does Rachel think she is? Comparing themselves with themselves, right? And they ended up filled with envy. But on the one hand, listen,
Leah was fertile.
Leah was able to give children or to bear children,
while Rachel wasn't.
And Rachel was barren. She could not bear children, right? However, Rachel
was desperate to have children and couldn't understand why Elohim blessed her sister in this area while she remained barren.
You know that mindset. She was sitting at home van, dit is niet eerlijk, man. This is not fair. Why does Elohim give it to my sister, but not me? So this was a mindset. It was going through her mind. And on the other hand, Jacob
loved Rachel with all his heart.
Now listen at this. Jacob loved Rachel with all of his heart, even though Rachel could not conceive. Read. Leah
was never the sister he intended to marry. The only reason she became his wife at all was because of trickery from her father Laban, who switched the brides at the last minute.
But this was not something that Leah was involved in. The father decided he did it so because he said, from our clansman perspective, it is a shame for the sister to be married first. So you came and I gave you my elder daughter first, but it also had to do with the sins of Jacob. It all came hand in hand. Leah had no role in this. However, she was despised, and Jacob loved Rachel more. Right? So from her father, Laban will switch the brides at the last minute.
Leah could give Jacob children, but craved the love and affection her sister received.
So from Leah's side and perspective, listen at this. In her hand, she had children. Elohim blessed her with children. And instead of her to be satisfied with that, in her mind, she was still very miserable, very unhappy. Because she could not even see the blessings she already had. The children walking around. In her mind, she was like, why doesn't Jacob love me? Why does Jacob only love Rachel? So the blessings were there, but she was blinded to it. All she was looking at was like, zie je, ik heb nu Ruben, ik heb nu Levi, but Jacob is still only looking at Rachel. And you will see it at the way that she was naming her children. Every time she would name her children, she would say, I have now received a child from Elohim. Now my husband will love me. So she was only focused and obsessed with, Jacob must love me. Jacob must love me. Right? So as you are reading,
Rachel was the beautiful sister of the family.
So that is Leah's issue and her envy of her sister. On the other side, now we have Rachel. Right? No, you was continuing reading. You were saying Leah could give Jacob children, yeah, but crave the love
and affection her sister received.
Now the other side, Rachel
was the beautiful sister of the family and heaped attention on her. Leah, by contrast, had weak eyes, suggesting that she was a plainer.
Meaning she was average looking. So the issue with Leah, she was average looking. Whilst Rachel was Rachel was creme de la. Rachel was astonishing, right? She was wonderfully made, and Leah was fearfully made. Meaning, maybe there was some evidence of gonyo, but that's a different subject, right? So she was, and she had children, which was a blessing, but she was plain looking, not too spicy, not too hot, right? And Rachel was beautiful to behold. So Leah had become therefore bitter
about the whole thing. Every time she produced another son, she reasoned, maybe now my husband will finally love me. Maybe now he will finally see me. As such, she named each son accordingly. See Genesis 29, 32 to 34.
Exactly. So you will see that every time first child, second child, third child, oh, I've received Reuben. Maybe now my husband will love me. Oh, I've received, Levi. Maybe now my husband will pay attention to me. Oh, I've received this. Maybe now he will finally love me. Every time she was only fixated about, I want the love of my husband. I want the love of my husband. And in retrospect, immediately also, she was always envious of her sister. So the two of them in their houses, there was continual warfare. Beef. Fighting, beef. Why? Two women jealous of each other. So that was the case of Leah. So if you then jump to Rachel's case, so in effect, I'm continuing. She had begun to make an idol
out of being loved and accepted by her husband. On the other hand, Rachel made an idol out of being able to have children. For both of these sisters, these two things had begun to define and determine their identity.
So at the other side, you had Rachel, who did not have children like Leah did. However, what she had was the unconditional love of Jacob. However, she was so fixated with having children that she did not see that she had the love of her husband. So at the same time, she was miserable. She was miserable and could not enjoy life. And unfortunately, This is the conundrum when it comes to females. They are not happy. I'm trying to find other terms for it. They are not happy. They are not happy. One craves love. You give her love. And another area of life is lacking. And she will forget all the blessings she has and will only focus on that aspect of life that is not going well. That is not going well. You are married, you have children, but according to you, your husband does not love you enough. You are married, you have children, but according to you, man, how neat for me? Why? Because he doesn't have time for you. But the guy is at home 24/7. So how do you define love? Must he put you on a plate and eat you like soup? No. How do you define that love? So in the case of Rachel, okay, she's barren, but she has all the love of Jacob. But in her mind, she's like, nay, man, nay, I must have children. On the other side, you have Leah. The husband has not, listen, can you not have time and have 4 children? So on the other side, Leah, Rachel is not fully with her, but she has children. But in her mind, she's like, nay, Reuben, nay, Levi, I want him. And Rachel on the other side is like, nay, I want her children. So they are both looking at each other envious. One envying what the other has, and the other envying what the other has. And eventually both of them miserable. And Jacob is there suffering. Right? So if you continue reading.
As both compared what the other had and what they each lacked, they began to resent each other more and to even grow bitter towards Elohim. It was only once Leah began to find her identity in Elohim that her attitude changed. Leah's last child was Judah, who headed up the tribe through whom the Messiah would be born. When Judah arrived, her attitude was now one of thankfulness and praise rather than bitterness.
So if you read that Genesis, you will see when it comes to Reuben, Levi, etc., every time she would get them, she would say, now my husband will love me. So she will first thank Elohim. She will say, I've received a male child from Elohim. Now my husband will love me. She did that 3 times. But when it came to Judah, this time, the only statement she made was, this time will I
praise Elohim.
Enough. She made no mention of Jacob when Judah was born. Meaning she went through a mindset shift from, hey, Rachel, what? Listen, nigga, is enough. This time I will find my joy and peace in Elohim. So she named him Judah, which means praise. She made no mention of Jacob. And the Bible also said, and after Judah was born, she, Leah, bore no more children. She was satisfied. She was satisfied, and her ending was well. But on the contrast, Rachel
did eventually give birth to 2 children, Joseph and Benjamin. She eventually died in labor, and her ending was not well. And she was so fixated on childbearing, this desire consumed her to the point of death.
Point and proof. Genesis 35:17.
And it came to pass when she was in hard labor.
First of all, it is telling you her labor was not soft. Her labor was not pleasant. She was in hard labor. She was in hard labor.
That the midwife said unto her, fear not, thou shalt have this son also. And it came to pass as her soul was in departing, for she died, that she called his name Benoni, but his father called him Benjamin. And Rachel died and was buried in the way to Ephrath, which is Bethlehem.
Do you see in what kind of pitiful state, unfortunately, Rachel died in? She was so consumed. She was so consumed and so obsessed with child rearing and childbearing, to the point that Elohim was like, Rachel, what? Fine, have it. But because her fixation was solely on bearing children, to the point where she was giving birth, and the lady was so bitter. She was so bitter that the child finally came, and she was like, your name is Benoni, which means you are the son of my pain. You are the son of my suffering. It's a curse. And Jacob sitting there was like, dit gaat niet goed. So he being wise, he being spiritually sensitive, he was like, no. I cancel this statement. I will call him Benjamin, the son of my right hand. Because if he did not cancel that statement, right, he would suffer. It's just like some Ghanaian folks, their name is Abebrese. Yeah, some people are walking around Abebrese. There is this mother, she's the friend of my mother. Her name is Nsona Monampasi, which means you will suffer. Monampasi comes from Komona Pasi, meaning you will see pain. There are people walking around and they have these names. We were living in Aberdeen. There was this guy, a hardworking guy. He was called Armstrong Abibrese, which means something with you will suffer. Hey, no. Sometimes there is a need for you to change your name. Sometimes there is a need for you to change your name. We have this brother, we call him Videkanto. All of us know him. First, he had a name, but he was sitting and he was studying his life. He was like, hey, this name, it has brought me too much suffering. Going in and out of jail, being arrested by the police. All of a sudden, he was like, henceforth, call me no more that name. Now call me Decanto. So every time you call him by that ancient name, he tells you, don't call me that. And some people are like, who did it? But me, I respect him. Because there is something he understands that you don't. So why should you not allow someone the liberty to call himself how he wants? He understood something. So Jacob was like, Benoni, if I let this name continue, my son will die before he reaches 4. So he called him Benjamin. But look at the bitterness of the mom when she died. Because how can you be a loving person and this is your goodbye gift to your son? You call him, you will suffer. You see? So that already tells you, unfortunately, the state of Rachel's mind when she died, she was already bitter. Just like many women, many people are walking in life very bitter. And the difference between Rachel and Leah is, at the beginning, they were at the same phase, envying one another, comparing themselves with one another. And in their mind, they was like, who did it? I remember there was this sister, unfortunately, I cannot mention her name, right? She literally told me, when she was getting married, there were sisters that did not attend her wedding. Why? Because they were upset that the guy chose her. So you just sit and imagine all of you are going to the same church. All of you are Hosanna, and you are praising God, and you have beautiful angelic voices. But a brother ascends, right? And he chooses a partner for himself. Yes, because we men, we ascend. So he chooses a partner for himself. And he says, I want to marry this female. And then there are sisters in the church, they get upset. Who did it? That's why I've been telling you guys, listen. If even we married folk don't eat sisters' nasies, you guys that are single, and you want to eat sisters' nasies, if you will eat nasi from the restaurant or from your mother. Don't eat sisters' nasies. Because in her mind, you eating her nasi means there is potential. hey, and we must discuss this, because if care is not taken, that's when we reach the point of witchcraft. So someone gets married and you are sitting at home and you decide, I'm not going to that wedding, because why is she getting married and not me? You see the level of the sickness. That's why when you go to the next slide, I wrote down, not yet. Okay, so let's wrap up Rachel and Lea because of time, and let's go to the case of Rachel and Lea. So the question is, can you identify?
There was one question, but I think you already answered it. Was, why was Leah's reasoning different when she got Judah?
We already answered it.
Right? Okay.
So the case of Rachel and Lea, can you identify
with these two set of sisters?
Mm-hmm.
So can you identify with these two set of sisters?
Mm-hmm.
Perhaps you feel that someone else gets all the attention and praise because of their looks and popularity.
Our sisters. Yeah, but I don't know. It's we must try to help them, but they must also help themselves. So why can I speak to him and she can speak? So it's madness. To the point that you're like, hey, what is it? So so perhaps you feel that someone else gets all the attention and praise because of their looks and popularity. They seem to have it all together. Read.
And naturally, people seem to shower them with love.
Mm-hmm.
They don't have to do much to even find a partner.
And to you, that troubles you. That troubles you, fine. Yeah, I'm so old and this. Why don't I have anyone? And she's so young. And why does she have someone? And you begin to imagine all manner of things. So continue reading. But perhaps
these people also compare themselves to you as well. They are not so happy on the inside. Maybe they are unable to have children or are barren in another area of their lives in which you seem to be thriving.
And that is what people forget. That's why there is the picture on the right. You can be the moon and still be jealous of the stars. You are sitting and you're like, all you do in your life is you compare yourself with other people. Hey, why is she married and I'm not married? But maybe you, for example, you have your driver's license, someone else doesn't. You're sitting fine. Hey, why does she have a job and I don't? But maybe you have a high level degree and that other has not even MBO. But all of these things you forget. You're sitting at home for like, why do people always talk to her and not to me? But maybe you're forgetting maybe that person has health issues. Maybe she's fat, for example. And maybe you are sharp. But so all I'm trying to say is, you can be the moon and still be jealous of the stars. You must stop that. Because maybe there are areas in your life that you are prospering and that other person is not. Because Elohim deals with us in different ways. And not only do we always should blame Elohim, we also make different decisions in life. Therefore, we have different outcomes. You can't always sit down and then because your bitterness, it grows to the point where you become bitter towards Elohim. But maybe that sister that now has a driver's license, you don't. When she was 17 and 18, she saved her money and she failed 3 times, but she pushed on and she had the driver's license. You, when you were 18, maybe you did nothing. And now you are 25, 28, you don't have a driver's license, and all of a sudden you become envious and you want to blame Elohim. You are nothing but the outcome of your own made decisions. Maybe that sister that now is married, maybe she kept herself when she was 18, 17, 19, and she had no boyfriends. Therefore, she did not have the scars and the traumas. So when a boyfriend came when she was 21, the boyfriend was like, hey, this girl, she's cool. No temper tantrums. And he decided to marry her. But you, 17, 18, 19, 20, maybe you were jumping around. And now you have all these traumas. So when a guy reaches and wants to speak to you, 1 month, 2 months, and he runs. Because he's like, this girl is suspicious. Today she's dead, tomorrow she's dead. And then he runs. You are the outcome of your decisions. So instead of blaming other people, you have to sit down and look at what do I have that is good, work on it, be satisfied, and pray and hope for the best. But this comparison, it makes no sense. So that's why the Bible even says some compare themselves by themselves, and in doing so, they are not wise. Right? So don't be like Rachel and Leah. If you have children, you are happy. That is your blessing. If you have beauty and the love of your husband, that is your blessing. If you have an education, you have everything that you have that is yours. Be happy with that. And then pray and hope for the best, but don't be envious of others. Don't be envious of others. And unfortunately, this is the disease of many women. So we are reading, don't allow these things to become
idols that consume you and also determine your identity and happiness. Look at the example of Leah and how she eventually began praising Elohim and choosing to be thankful.
So that is the mystery sister that asked it. She chose to switch her mind and be thankful for the things that she had instead of focusing on what others had.
This changed her whole outlook on things, and Elohim did something beautiful in her by producing the messianic line from which the Messiah would eventually come.
So, because I don't know if I should also hammer in this example, because this also happens. And no, we'll just go through it, because I spend 1 hour on men, so we should spend 1 hour. It's life. It's just life. Equality. Yeah, they want equal rights, right? Okay. So Solomon and the 2 women. Solomon and the 2 women. So yeah. Oh, I didn't even read. I think this should be what? 2 Kings or something? 3:16. Okay. Then came there 2
women that were harlots unto the king.
This is the mystery. And stood
before him. And the one woman said, "O my master, I and this woman dwell in one house, and I was delivered of a child with her in the house. And it came to pass the 3rd day after that I was delivered, that this woman was delivered also. And we were together. There was no stranger with us in the house, save we 2 in the house. And this woman's child died in the night because she overlaid it. She arose at midnight and took my son from beside me while that handmaid slept, and laid it in her bosom, and laid her dead child in my bosom. And when I rose in the morning to give my child suck, behold, it was dead. But when I had considered it in the morning, behold, it was not my son which I did bear. And the woman said, Nay, but the living is my son, and the dead is thy son. And this said, No, but the dead is thy son, and the living is my son. Thus they spake before the king. Then said the king, The one says, This is my son that liveth, and thy son is the dead. And the other said, Nay, but thy son is the dead, and my son is the living. And the king said, Bring me a sword. And they brought a sword before the king. And the king said, Divide the living child in two, and give half to one and half to the other. Then spake the woman whose living child was unto the king, for her bowels yearned upon her son. And she said, O my master, give her the living child, and in no wise slay it. But the other said, Let it be neither mine nor thine, but divide it. Then the king answered and said, Give her the living child, and in no wise slay it. She is the mother thereof.
So people, this story, this shows you the level envy, bitterness can reach in women. This shows you the level envy, bitterness can reach in women. To the point where she can make a statement and say, Let it be neither mine nor thine, but let it die, so that the both of us will have nothing. And this, people, is what we call the purest definition of witchcraft. So as I said in the beginning, don't fear the one who takes a broom, so-called, and flies in the night. How does one flying in the night disturb you? If she wants to fly in the night, the witch wants to fly in the night, let the witch fly in the night. It's good for space. What you should be very afraid of, if I should use the word fear, is the one who is envious of you. The one who is envious of you. So if you go to the next slide, listen, give me, hey, this is unbelievable. So if you go to the next slide, give me Proverbs 27 verse 4. It says, wrath is cruel,
and anger is outrageous,
but who is able to stand
before envy?
Envy is dangerous. Wrath is cruel and anger is outrageous. But who's able to stand before envy? You look at someone, she has what you want, and you feel uneasy. Je voelt je gewoon rot. Because someone has something and you don't have it. I advise you, if you have such a person, don't even dare to call such a person your friend. These are the most dangerous of people. You have a house and he begins to make shots. You are married and, ja, wat is er? Ik ben boos op je. Wat? Ik ben boos op je. Waarom? Yeah, ever since you're married, you don't have time for me anymore. If you are a sister, someone says that, say okay. Just make a mental note van dangerous person. Make a mental note van dangerous person. What do you mean? Since you're married, of course she has no time now. She must adapt to a new way of life.
Mm-hmm.
Well, what do you mean? I got married and I was living here, and I remember last time I went to one of my brothers that lives here close by. I went into his house, and the first thing I said was, "Hey, I apologize. I'm sorry." He was like, "Why?" I was like, "Before I got married, I came here in your house more often than I do now, but I live 2 minutes from you." And he was like, "Why do you apologize? It's life. You must adapt to it's life." But let's say you had a strange friend, and he would make use of that statement and say that, "Ja, man, je bent raar, man. Kill, je komt nooit, man." Dangerous. Dangerous. Right? So it is saying, wrath is cruel, anger outrageous, but who's able to stand before envy? To the point where people will be sitting, and old women, and they will be sitting, and then all they do is they speak evil of other people, other people's relationships, other people's children, old women. And then you're like, Emma, there's a vrouw, man. Why is she always so negative and always speaking evil of other people? You yourself, you've been living at home. You know what your mother does. I mean, you have been living at home to the point where nowadays, the moment your mother picks the phone, you already run to your room because you don't want to participate in that negativity. She will take the phone and she will start gossiping for hours. Hey, have you seen that? Heb je dat gezien? Heb je dat gezien? Nee hoor, nee. And for the people that always are like, nee. Those are the ones that they are guilty. Why do you always have to say nee? Why do you always have to say that? So you already know from dangerous. That's the thing. So you will see it's evident in our mothers. And unfortunately, it is passed down to the daughters. And it is passed down to the sisters that we are married to, or that people want to marry to. You will see the traits. Envy of others, envy of others, envy of others, envy of others. So this statement, it's not scientifically proven, that says more women die of jealousy than of cancer, but I can understand where this person gets this from. We saw the case of Rachel and Lea. We saw the case of Salomon with the two women. Because ask yourself, what drove this woman to the point where she was willing to kill another person's child? What drives someone to the point where he's willing for Rachel what? In Lingala we say ingeta or ebe bakaka. In other words, just let it burn. To the point where you're like, hey, I'm miserable. You must also be miserable. I'm suffering. Everyone must suffer. I don't have anything. None must have anything. What can drive a person to reach that level? It starts very small. You hold for, hey, yeah, man, JD has a nice house. And the moment you hear that, you feel a small pain in your heart. For you must immediately deal with that feeling. Immediately deal with that feeling. Because that small one is the beginning of your pain. It's like a serpent comes and bites you. It's a small bite, but the venom begins to grow. So then all of a sudden you hear JD's nice house. You're like, and then you go home and then you start you just lie in your bed and you start thinking. Fine. First, so-called, you're just in the beginning you're just curious. But hey, oh nice man, oh nice man, hey man. You begin all of a sudden you begin to, as if you are JD's doctor now, you begin to think like, hey, JD, you take a calculator, you're like, JD, he's this age. First he was living with his mother. I heard he went, or he didn't even go to school, or he did, or he went to school. I don't know if this guy has a job. So you begin making all scenarios just to see if your calculation is correct. And then eventually you manipulate the data in your head just so that your calculation will be like, he doesn't deserve the house. That's the conclusion of your thinking. But you think you are a fair person. Van, hey, eigenlijk met JD, it klopt niet. Wat heeft hij huis? That's your conclusion. And that's how it starts. And then when you make that conclusion, you accept it in your head, you take it in, then in your mind you have condemned him. Van, is een nigger? No, maar hij verdient het niet. And you begin telling yourself that. That's where it starts. And then when you start speaking to other people, you begin to sabotage. You throw shots. Ja, eigenlijk, deze man, ik kan ook zo'n huis krijgen. So shots. You begin to think evil. That's how it starts. And then, unfortunately, it grows. And then if care is not taken, you bring it to the spirit realm. And this is a mystery that people don't understand. If you are the type of person, you always dream that bad things happen to people, you are very dangerous. The spirit is telling you, and you are not aware that you are a demon, but you don't understand. If you are the type of person, you always dream, hey, that person is in a car accident. Hey, that person broke his leg. Hey, that person died. You don't, unless you are a prophet, and it comes with a message for, hey, warn this, and I know you're not. And all you dream is bad things about people, right? What it is telling you, don't understand this. You are an incubator of evil. You don't know. You are projecting thoughts. You are projecting evil. So you have become like a tree of death. And people don't understand. For hey, yeah, and then you call him for hey JD, what is it? Of names JD. You're like, hey Chris. And this happened to me. Right? Many people don't know. This happened to me. I was minding my business, sitting at my house, and then a Bantu man called me. And I picked my phone. I was like, hello. Yeah, Chris, alles goed? I was like, yeah. Hey, alles goed? Ik zeg, ja, hoezo? Ja, I had a dream. Ik zeg, kan? What is a dream? You died. What? Yeah, I had a dream. You died prematurely. I'm like, I died? Yeah, you died prematurely. But don't worry, I have prayed for you. I was like, okay. And then I just laughed and I was like, you don't need to pray for me. And don't worry about me dying. I'm not finished yet. So just forget the dream. And then I showed it to Justin, and he was like, hey, brother, ate jollof, whatever. Skip that madness. And then from that moment on, me and that person, all of a sudden, it's like as if the guy doesn't like me anymore. But I did nothing to you. All I did was I rejected your projection of me. And that's what people don't understand. It's very dangerous. So if you are the type of person, evil thoughts about other people, to the point where you begin dreaming it, you are already a witch. You are already a witch. So be very careful what you dream. What you dream. And there are people, women, they dream. Ja, ik had een droom en ik zag zuster daar en ongeluk. Ik had een droom en we waren ergens en alles viel. And that's because that means your mind is very negative. So you only see evil things. And you also bring it now in reality. You guys are living at your houses. Everything is going well. There is only one area in life that has challenges. Every person in life will have an area in their life where there are challenges. But if you are the type of person, all the other areas are well. There is one area in your life where there is a challenge. You will see she will put all her attention towards that area. And it's as if all the other areas does not exist. If this is your mindset, you are also very dangerous. And you are close to be called a witch and an ungrateful person. So you have to be very, very, very careful when it comes to this. And because this feeling is very close to our sisters, especially they must be careful. Right? So I wrote down in yellow.
It is important to note that amongst all the sins that cleave to mankind, the sin of jealousy is strongly present in females. Females naturally are always in search of confirmation and validation, especially from men. Therefore, this sense of validation needs to be monitored unless it grows out of hand and becomes jealousy, which turns into evil thoughts, which turns into slander and gossip, and eventually witchcraft. Learn to be content and do not compare yourself with others. Be comfortable in your own skin and try to improve for yourself and not for someone else. If it is validation you seek, find it in Elohim and not in men. Due to this cause, many false prophets have risen and they exploit many women and abuse them financially, emotionally, and physically.
Oh, 3 in 1. The abuse of our sisters is 3 in 1.
3 and 1.
They will first abuse you emotionally, then they will abuse you financially, and then they will crucify you physically. The abuse is 3 in 1. Why? Because they have understood your weakness. So 2 Timothy 3 and 6.
For of this sort are they which creep into the houses and lead captive silly women laden with sins, led away with diverse lusts, ever learning and never able to come to the knowledge of the truth.
That is the mystery. So if there are single brothers in our midst, you are planning to find a she-lamb, right? And you decide to go to churches, right? Avoid the shanda baba types. Those are the ones that are silly women driven with diverse lust, and they are the most spiritual in the church.
Ever learning.
So if you are in the church and you are scanning, fun, let me make a selection of 2 or 3 because you are ascending, right? Just check. The one who is prophetic, avoid. The one who's deep in tongues, avoid. The one who's active like, avoid. Look for the one who's meek, who is maybe, instead of being the prophetic mama, maybe she's doing ushering. Look, so a meek one. Find a meek one. Find a meek one. Avoid the prophetic mamas because those are the ones who have suffered the 3 in 1 abuse. The prophet has crucified them physically, emotionally they are his, and financially their money is the prophet's money. So avoid them. Avoid them. Because they have understood, these preacher men, these women, they seek validation. So they will tell you, she's my armor bearer. So listen at the level we have now reached, where preacher men, young guys, they have turned sisters into their Bible carriers. You are a guy, you have a small church of maybe 20 people, but you have a secretary now. So I'm wondering, she's your secretary. What administrative tasks is she doing? You have 20 people in your church at max. So what is her job? And you're walking around fun, she's my secretary. I'm like, wow. And what's the most dangerous is, oftentimes, these are sisters, they have either university or HBO. They have ID. And the nigger, oftentimes, did not finish school. But he's the prophetic papa. And he's telling you, sister, you have to stay close to me. You have to stay close to me. You have the gift of, you have the gift of Phoebe. That's what they will say. What's that? You can administrate things. Hey. If I was a false prophet, because the way these people, they play with people's minds, right? So the way they play with people's minds, it is next level. So you have the gift of Phoebe, you have the gift of administration, so you should be my secretary. And the girl is like, okay, fine, prophet, what does that mean? It means if I have a conference, you must pick me up 1 hour beforehand. Make sure everything is arranged where I will sleep, my car. You carry my Bible, you carry my drinks. And then they're like, many people are envious of the anointing. So make sure no one touches me. Make sure no one touches my drink. You are the one responsible. The woman feels so elevated, not knowing you have just been turned into a servant, a slave. And the dangerous thing is, he will not pay you. You will pay him. That is the highest level of abuse. But our sisters are doing that. So people, sisters, have your emotions in check. Do not let this sense of validation that you seek of, because it is natural for you, just like it is natural for men. Every person has a sense of pride, especially we mankind. If you take that feeling away from us, we will not function. That's why we want to protect our houses, protect our family. We want to build houses for our wives and children. We want to make sure that the environment is safe. It comes from a sense of pride. It's natural. Don't let it consume you to the point where you become boastful. The same as with women. The Bible says, and her desire shall be towards her husband. So that sense of seeking validation, it is natural. However, you must control it. Don't let it reach the point where you become so envious that you no longer see the good things you have and only seek out and look for what other people have, and then compare yourself and then make yourself miserable. And this envy, because of time, I don't know if I can touch it. I didn't make a slide for it per se, but this envy also mutates in them trying to control their husbands. I wish I had a slide for this, but it just came. Because this envy, it has many forms. One of the forms is also, they will reach a point where they want to control the husband. You went from me. So they want to hold you like this. But you cannot control a husband. That is where many people, they are in relationship, they are in their houses, but they are living in hell whilst they are living in their house. Because all she's doing is thinking, he's going outside. What is he going to do? He's on the phone. Who is he speaking to? He's laughing with someone. Who? And why? What is the subject matter? To the point where you reach a point where you want to control a black man. But we cannot be controlled by women. And the moment a guy feels van, hey, deze dame wil me controleren, that is when he begins to do things that he wouldn't even do. Why? Because now you are touching his pride. So if you are a woman, and sometimes you hear your husband say the following statement, van, and he begins to say things like, eigenlijk, I wouldn't do that, but because you said this, I will show you. That's when the danger comes. Because sometimes you touch that sense of pride, and now the guy must show you, fun, I'm still a man, and you are still a woman. So some people do it by turning into Mike Tyson. Other people do it by giving you the silent treatment to show you, fine, hey, I don't need you. Other people do it by cheating. They cheat. And then they're like, what are you doing? So do not try to control a man. Biblically speaking, men are allowed to have more women. So if you are living in Babylon and the guy you are with is not taking another wife or another wife or another wife, you should leave the guy alone, because he is allowed. This is what, especially the girls that are born in Europe, Babylon, they have this mindset. He's allowed to have more women. But if he says, I don't want it, that should already tell you he loves you. It's not when he comes with you and he's cuddling you that means that he loves you. I can also be away for days, and then every time I'm back, I cuddle. But then when I'm gone, I'm gone. Does that mean I love you? So that is also the area where envy and mutates, where women, they want to control men. You can't control him. If he goes outside, you don't know what he does at his work. You will never know. You don't know what he does. That's why I said, women, especially women, do not let your husband or men become your idol. Many women have raised men to the point where the husband or the man is their idol. The man is their God. Try to let go of that. Seek your validation in Elohim and live in peace in your house. Right? So as we are concluding, are there any questions on that? So as we are concluding, because of time also, conclusion.
Philippians 2:3. Let nothing be done through strife or vainglory, but in lowliness of mind, let each esteem other better than themselves. Look not every man on his own things, but every man also on the things of others. 1 John 2:16. For all that is in the world, the lust of the flesh and the lust of the eyes and the pride of life, it is not of the Father, but it is of the world. James 3:15. This wisdom descends not from above, but is earthly, sensual, and devilish. For where envying and strife is, there is confusion and every evil work.
Where you see there is envy, people envying one another, and where you see there is strife, people having selfish ambition, you will always see confusion and evil work. Why? People will begin to sabotage one another. Apart from sabotaging one another, you are working in a group and you will begin to see people put their own ambitions first. So you have an afspraak gemaakt. Hey, let's do this at this time. Someone doesn't even finish it, and it doesn't even apologize. That is part of sabotage. You give someone a task or a leadership position in a group, and the guy all of a sudden thinks he's Tony Montana. The way he's speaking to you is out of order. Why? It's because there is envy and strife there, and it will result in confusion and every evil work. So if you are someone in a group, you have a leadership position, no matter how small it is, the leader should be the meekest. The leader should be the meekest. Because if you are the leader and you speak harsh, it will be twice as hard as someone who's not the leader who speaks harsh. So let other people speak harsh. If you are the leader, you should be the meekest. Iemand doet iets verkeerd. Hey, kom eens even. Waarom doe je dat? Because you are the leader, you should be the meekest. Don't try to show that you are the leader, because if you do that, people will resent you. So don't be like that. Right? So, but the wisdom that is from above
is first pure, then peaceable, gentle, and easy to be entreated, full of mercy and good fruits, without partiality and without hypocrisy. And the fruit of righteousness is sown in peace of them that make peace.
Exactly. So as we have said, this is the end of today's message. Right on time, in 3 seconds, it is 2. So shalom.